22 years old, I think it was 22, 23 years old, I had this opportunity to take over a very large construction company up in Michigan. And the owner I was friends with and I knew him and he was just gonna give me the business, and then I would take 5 years and give him a percentage of everything it did. I didn't have to come up with the money down, and he had the customers, he had the processes, he had everything set up in place and everything else. And I'm just like 22, 23 years old. I'm just getting started in life, and it's like, "Oh my god, like this would be the most incredible thing ever." And within we were gonna talk 3 days later. Within that 3-day period, that went from all the excitement and like just incredible to I can't do this. I haven't worked for this. I don't deserve to have this. And do you know I let that opportunity pass because of that? And that's one of the triggers that started me going, what's the matter with me? That has been this 4-decade journey into what I do today.
So you're saying that going back to that experience with what you know now, you would have taken the offer.
I would have known to shift the programming, and then it would have been a huge sell. Yes, absolutely.
Right. And decide maybe the decision would be the same, but it wasn't a decision made out of fear. It was a decision made out of whatever is right for you.
Yes. And maybe that wouldn't have been the best avenue, but I would have not shorted myself because of that internal programming. And that's what really kind of brought the clarity. See, before then, I always thought there was something wrong with me. Every time I'd go to coaching programs and I'd get done, I wouldn't get the results. And every time I'd walk away and go, man, there's something wrong with me. But then as I understood the subconscious, I understood it's not me or anybody else's fault. It's just the programming I have. So now what can I do about it? And then that started leading into books with Joseph Murphy and, all kinds of other people and stuff about the subconscious mind and then understanding it and then coming about trying, experimenting, all kinds of stuff to identify once you identify, how do I shift that now? How do I permanently shift that? Not how do I feel good today, but tomorrow it's there. How do I shift that out of my life so it's no longer a part of that programming and put more positive programming in its place?
Let's lay a foundation. What is exactly subconscious programming?
So, okay, we have a conscious mind, right? And our conscious mind is everything we want, desire, everything else. And then we have a portion of it that's a subconscious mind. And what that does is it hosts all of our programming, our patterns, our paradigms, our belief systems, experiences we've had in the past, and really even experiences that somebody told us about that they had can feed into that programming. It's so what happens is we have this network of programming, and depending on where you grew up, how you grew up, all of that stuff. If you grew up in my family, I had the programming I have, but I have 4 siblings, and all 4 of us have unique programming within us, even though we grew up in the same environment. So it's really unique to the individual. Well, that programming, it's the voice we hear in our head, but just as important as that is what triggers the brain waves to the actions we take or don't take. That construction company, the programming would not allow me to follow through on that, to even get to the point, is this really the right thing for me? Because it held me short based on the programming of deserving.
So are these like memories? Are these memories that have been ingrained, the brain in a deep place in the mind?
Yeah. They're almost, that's why I call it like a motherboard, really, because it's all the programming that's within there. And so what we do is, so as we identify that programming that's causing, and that's what the SMT method is geared to do, is to identify it, then we have tools where we can shift that. And as we do, we're instantly opening up doorways to greater potential and possibilities.
But would you say like not every memory creates a program? There are certain memories that creates, I would say, that influences and impacts us more than others. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, don't miss out on my free Burnout Free Business Guide. It's a simple 7-day plan to help you reset your relationship with your business, improve your mindset, and achieve more while staying balanced. You can download it right now by using the link in the description. The next question and wonder is, why do we have so many negative programmings within us?
Realistically, if you look at somebody who was raised in a wealthy family with successful people, and they have different programming than what I had starting out. The first question you asked.
First question is about memories that creates programming and memories that don't.
Yeah, part of the thing is the repeatedness of those. If I have a repeated memory that's telling me, I was told growing up, there's people meant to work with their head and people meant to work with their hands, and you're going to work with your hands. And I was told that over and over and over. And I was told that by my mom, who loved and cared about me and didn't want me to be disappointed. But I was told that by multiple teachers. And so if I'd have, so that programming, the more we hear it, the more ways it comes to us and things like that, the more it gets, the deeper it's ingrained into the into the subconscious.
Would you
So
also say that those memories need to be emotionally charged more than others?
yes, yes. And one of the ways of looking at that, anybody can do this. Ask yourself or take a moment. How much time do you spend celebrating successes in life? And how much time do you spend fixing the greasy wheels, right? The greasing wheels, yeah. Because we always
Yeah.
say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease,
Fixing the
which means the
problems.
problems, right? So we
Yeah.
go through our life looking for problems, and it's coming from conditioning again to fixing problems. So what I do is I work with my clients, and it might seem silly, but we start looking at the gratitudes, the blessings, the things that are showing up out of the blue, things like that. We start looking at those as a squeaky wheel. So we give those the grease, and in doing so, we're making a complete 180 shift from problem focused life, fixing problems and until it's good and until it, get to the level I might get to, and living at that level that's already showing up right there. Doing that opens up the doorway to greater opportunities showing up just because we're already living in it.
One of the assumptions that I heard about why that is because the brain is very preoccupied with survival. So it's always looking for what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, and is not preoccupied with what's right, what's going great, because it's about survival. If everything's good, then I don't have anything to do. So maybe this is also why we tend to focus more on the negative things and develop the tendency to look for them, even to attract those repetitive voices that ingrain those programmings in our minds.
Absolutely. And if you look at what you said there, if you just think about that in a model form, kind of. So we're going through our life trying to fix it to be good enough to be the life we want it to be. That's scenario one. Scenario two is we're focused on what's going right and we continue to do those things and we lean into those things, which brings up more things that we do going right. And now we're living in that life that we desire instead of waiting for it to happen at some point. Which model do you want to live by?
Okay, so let's say someone's listening, nodding. They believe you, they believe us. But now they're wondering, so what do I do with this? Can you walk us through what SMT looks like in practice? Like if you were coaching me tomorrow,
Yes.
where would we start?
The whole thing, there's a process to it, but I'll say it's a unique pathway, a unique journey for every individual. So, but every client I work with, we come out of the gate developing what's called a dynamic vision. So we have goals, right? We're used to living on goals. Goals are hit or miss, things like that. So, but developing a vision, getting the clarity in that vision is what makes a vision powerful. Vision boards, affirmations, things like that, where we get the visual of it and the clarity of that visual. But then to elevate it to dynamic, we add that feeling tone. What's it going to feel like when your business goes from $1 million to $15 million? What's that going to feel like to live there? I had a client that went from $7.5 million to over $22 million in within 12 months, and they couldn't even fathom what that would be like. So what we did is we built it to 15 to 12.5 million actually from 7.5, and because they could see that then and get that clarity. And then as we hit that, we just kept altering that vision and updating that vision to get to the next and next and next, going up with it and stuff. But yeah, so coming out of the gate, it's so important to get the clarity of, we talk about the whys, right? Why do you want this? Or the five. And so with that, that's good, but it doesn't give you the clarity that a dynamic vision does, where you can read through that thing, or I have my clients record it so they can listen to it while they're driving, and you're describing to yourself being in that situation of where you want to be at. Man, that's just so exciting to see that grow. And so even in developing that vision, we're going to bump into that programming that's causing limitation, right? Because that client that went from 7.5 to 22 million, all they wanted to do is go to 10 million. I helped them stretch it to 12.5. And in doing that, we started bumping up against those paradigms and the patterns within the subconscious. So we identified, we shifted that, moved it forward, settled on the 12.5. And now as we started growing to that, it was just like you just see it opens bigger and bigger and bigger. And I know the first time I work with a client, that vision we developed, that dynamic vision, it's not their end point, because as we change, our vision becomes as alive as we do. So as we change, as we evolve, as we grow, that vision's going to as well. That's the human condition. And then the other side of that is when we have that vision, what we do then in the SMT method is we start living through that vision being our reality versus our situations and circumstances surrounding us. Because the situations, circumstances, something happens, state of the economy or something, and business reacts. We see how stocks react, and business people that react to that, man, they're doing this all the time in their business with the up, down, and everything else. Where when we have that vision, they become just little speed bumps. The situation,
When you're
circumstance.
saying we live that reality, are you talking about the accelerating habit?
I've not even gotten to that yet. This is all just about the vision and the power of it and what it does is what. So, yeah, when we're living by that vision being our reality, I know, then in doing so, we start taking the situation circumstances that usually bog us down and cause a lot of problems and anxieties and all that. And all of a sudden they become small because we know that vision is where we're headed to. And this is just what it looks like as that vision is unfolding. And so there's other tools within that vision of how we put that on and utilize that to live through as our reality.
So the first step would be to develop that dynamic vision. And just to make clear that I understood, the word dynamic comes because this vision is changing, it's evolving, it's malleable. Or the word dynamic is because that vision is something you not only write down, it's something you also see, feel, hear, smell, and maybe even touch.
I'd say it's both.
That's the first step. What's the second step?
That's where we began. So now you got this vision. Now you're excited about the vision. Now what we do, we start bridging that gap from where we are to where we want to be. We check and do stuff, make sure the vision's in alignment and things like that with who we are authentically. And so, but then we start bridging that gap. In bridging that gap, what we're doing is we're starting to develop, and there's different modules that, go through, break it smaller than what we're talking about, but we start bridging that gap from where we are to where we'll be in that vision. And in doing so, one of the things we start doing is we start developing systems of accelerating habits that are unique to the individual. So we start looking at the things. I'll give you a quick example. You ever see somebody do a social media live and you can tell they can't stand being there? They're uncomfortable, they're fidgety, don't want to look at the camera. How long do you
Absolutely.
watch those things for?
I don't.
Me neither. I feel bad for the person. Now you ever see somebody do a social media live and the cameras, and you can tell the camera is their home? You end up
Right.
watching that person, you get more out of it, right? It's the same analogy we use in developing it. For some people, doing things that other people and sales strategies and business growth and stuff tell you have to do, they don't fit that person. So what I do is I work with the client and figure out what are those things that light you up? What are those things where you're at home doing? And then we find more time to do those things. And in doing so, I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that was important to me is when I do something is I want to, if I do something and I can get a quick win, man, then all of a sudden it opens up the doorway of my excitement to go deeper. And so most clients, even in developing that vision, will have something happen. I don't want to say what exactly because it changes, but something happen in that development that just hits onto something that's like, oh my God, this is real. And from there, they got so much more excitement charged into the rest of the process.
What I got from reading this section of the book was maybe I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of a bold claim that not every change is hard to do. There are habits that are hard because they're just not where you should be starting at. But there are changes that are going to be easier, maybe even fun to do, even if you hadn't done it until now, because that's just in alignment with who you are and what you want to achieve. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I found that, and like every client I've worked with has found, yes, because, walking away from corporate America after a 28-year career, building from the ground up to a vice president of sales and all this stuff in that, helping elevate a majority of my sales teams to top producers, things like that through corporate, and then walking away. And I didn't know anybody down here when I started. If it wasn't for having these tools, I would have never taken that step. And it was a scary step even in doing so with it, but it helped me to come about it in a way that just put alignment to things. And all of a sudden the move down here was easy and it was fun, just like I wanted it to be. Once I got down here and I would hand out, I started out, I know when I got here, handing out 5 business cards a day, talking to people. That's what I would do because I love talking to people anyway. So, and so I would give out 5 business cards. And if there was a day I only gave out 3, the next day I gave out 7. So I kept it on track like that. And all of a sudden these things just start opening up for me. And all I was doing was talking to people, and so whatever that is, like I said, those 3 people that came to me in that one day when I was out in the Jeep with the top off, doors off, and I'm going through a botanical garden and such, it starts showing up. It starts happening. We don't have to effort near to the degree that we think we do. We have to take actions. I can't sit on my couch with a bag of potato chips and expect my business to grow. So I do have to take actions, but the actions can be enjoyable. They can be. I'll give you another example. When I was in corporate America, if I had to be in the office 2 days in a row after 5 o'clock, beyond 5 p.m., I would get upset. I would be bothered. I felt like I was taken advantage of. It would really just kind of steam me and stuff. There's times in doing what I do now that I'll do my stuff during the day and then I'll go home and do whatever, gym, eat, whatever, come back at 10, 11 o'clock at night. And the next room next to me here is my recording studio. So I'll just do recordings, of different things and everything else. There's times I get done at 3:30 in the morning and I leave and I can't sleep. I'm so excited and that I get to do this. So that's part of that transformation is instead of have-tos, living life by have-tos, which brings in the struggle, effort, all of that stuff, makes everything we do harder, is we start getting into that alignment of, man, I get to do this. I get to do this. And part of the thing that's always magic for me is I get to do it in a way that feels good to me. You think about that differences in those. How could it not be easier?
Right. So it's not about just only working less hours. It's about working on things that lightens you up in alignment with with who you are and with what you love to do. That just makes it easier, and you can work because many people are saying there's no such thing as work-life balance. You know what I'm talking about. There's no such thing as fine as working less hours and having like this period of time for work, this period of time for family, this period of time for taking care of your body and your health and whatever. When they do what they love, when they do what they care about, when they do what they feel is aligned with their mission and vision, then it doesn't feel like out of balance. Even they can work 12-hour, 14-hour day, but still feel like they're totally balanced.
Yeah, and the other thing it does is helps us when we get out of that hustle bustle mode like that, it helps us to reprioritize our life. So I've taken people who are working 10, 12, 13, 14 hours a day.
Mhm.
The person I talked about with the business that went from 7.5 to 22 million, they were so busy they had no time for family, they had no time for exercise, no time for friends, like nothing other than work, work, work. As we started doing it and the business started growing, all of a sudden they have more time to put in those because we reprioritize things. And I'll tell you something that's in that statement you said that always makes me sad is somebody that says you can't have a successful business without and have life balance can never achieve
What doesn't make you sad, Joey?
the fact that that person that walks around saying that will never get the opportunity to experience the flow of things and because they're one of the things I look for in every client is you have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to believe something beyond what you know can work to bring this about. And that's what the SMT method is. It's a proven system to help do that. But if somebody believes I always call it a beginner mindset, right? Because we all know a lot of things. So I'll meet a lot of people who are, I know. You have to grind and everything else and in order to have a success. Okay, then I can't help that person. It makes me sad because I know that's not true, but I can't force anybody. What I do isn't for those who need it, it's for those who want it. And that's where the sadness comes in that I can't help this person. So if they don't have that beginner mindset, is simply, I know a lot. But what can I learn here that I can add to what I already know? That's a beginner mindset. That's somebody that I look for in my initial calls with people. Because if you have that, there's no stopping you. There's no stopping how far you can go. There's no stopping how much balance you can have. But I've had clients before. I had one in particular who wholesaled restaurants and such, and he would tell me that we talked one day. He goes, I don't even have an hour to play my guitar during the week. I'm so busy. I go, you can't find 1 hour, and he goes, no. I go, okay, take out a piece of paper. I went through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we had like 6, 7, 8 hours that he could play his guitar. And do you know that changed that man? Because instead of looking at how busy he was, he shifted that and he could start looking for all the open areas he had in his weeks.
Joey, does it make you sad maybe because you were that person that worked so hard and paid the price? Maybe feels like he shouldn't have and doesn't want other people to feel like you felt back then?
It starts with that. Because back when I was doing that, I was following what I had learned and I was doing it to the absolute best of my ability and it got me nowhere. And more, I thought there was something wrong with me. And I just continued following those things. And there was a while when I wouldn't really look into any other things. I just knew if I did it long enough, somehow something's going to happen, right? And then as I started learning this stuff and my whole life transformed, when I meet somebody now, I know what's possible for them. But I know I can't spark that beginner mindset in them, so it makes me sad because I know how they're living, and I know they're gonna continue going on with that because of not being willing to be open to something different could work better.
And thank God for your book, because that could mean a start for a lot of people. It can be opening the door to changing that mentality for so many people who up until now had to meet you and do the actual
Yes.
work and invest and be ready. Now they can start with the book. So congratulations on that step.
Thank you.
Joey, I'm going to take a risk here. I actually tried to reverse engineer your process from the book, and here's what I wrote
I
down.
love it.
And I want you to tell me if I'm anywhere close.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
So I wrote this: deliberate focus. You start with that to identify limiting beliefs and rewire them through visualization, affirmations, but not the classic kind. Backed by a meditation practice and specific journaling method that helps bring unconscious patterns into awareness. And it all revolves around what you call the dynamic vision, which turns the impossible into the inevitable. Then it's anchored with accelerated micro habits built on the core anchor habit, tracked, celebrated, emotionally charged, and reinforced with accountability. Joey, how close was that?
You did well. If I ever had the delight of you and I getting to work together, that would be very much the path. Somebody else, they may not meditate, they may not write, they may not, do when I talk about the uniqueness, but yeah, I mean, as far as the high level points of that, absolutely, that's what it is it's taking actions that cause us, that open up that vision, like that, but then bump into that programming so we can at least be aware of it. Once we're aware of it, we can do something. And unless we're aware of it, we're unconsciously living so big percentages of our life through that programming. So once we bring awareness to it, then we can take the tools and we can shift that. We can do perception shifting and, variety of things that I utilize as far as the toolkits for that, based on the individual again, and based on the programming and things like that.
So, Joey, there's so many frameworks out there for subconscious reprogramming, affirmations, habit stacking, books. We heard about them. In your words, your own words, what makes SMT different? What do you believe it's solving that others miss?
I know what's different is it's designed to work off the uniqueness of every individual, the uniqueness of their programming, the uniqueness of their desires, uniqueness of their lives, like all of that feeds into it. That's one thing that's different. And then the other side of it is why it works. Any program that forces us to be something other than who we naturally are is not going to bring near the impact of living through who we are. The whole purpose of us being here is we've had unique gifts and talents placed within us. And the whole purpose is to bring those outwardly. I know I can't be like somebody else and live through those gifts and talents. What I'm trying to do is mimic their gifts and talents and bring that to my life. And it never works the same. The process of getting there is much more frustrating and what we think at that point is, well, I need more of their help now because it's getting more frustrating. When realistically, it's taken me, I've experienced that firsthand numerous times. I've invested a lot. And each time it was like, man, I'm not getting enough help here. Well, it wasn't that I wasn't getting enough help. It wasn't tailored for me. And that's what makes all the difference with it is when we start coming from who we authentically are, who we really are, shift that programming, we open up this to have such an incredible impact, whether it's how much we sell, the people we impact, the relationships we build, whatever it is, all the way through. It grows so much when we're coming from that avenue versus don't care what I do, I just want the business growth.
If you could leave every purpose-driven entrepreneur watching this with one truth, one sentence, they repeat it until it becomes real in their lives, what would it be?
There are possibilities and ways of growing your business that can be joyful through that process. It can be enjoyable. It can be, something to be celebrated, and it can be fun, and it can be with a flow, and it can allow for life balance while it's happening. You just got to be open to believing that there is a possibility of that.